When one is forced to stay home, one begins searching for games. And the idea came to me to talk about shopping for games and the current models and offering that people use. Something that I want you to keep in mind is that games are weird when it comes to money. The price that you're paying doesn't exactly correlate with the quality of the game. To be fair, the beginning wasn't some kind of proverb. I'm just fucking ill at the moment. This one's just as it is on the tin. A bunch of genres are in this, but it doesn't have to be just gacha games. The biggest esports out there are freemium games, and you just pay with other things than money, or money also. You just pay with your time, your patience, your soul, your dignity. There's a video on this I've made already. But generally speaking, in some games that might have some kind of level system or some kind of RPG system, you can spend extra money to accelerate your account. And generally speaking, most of the money comes from cosmetics. And I mean, it's kind of just like, it's on the idea that if you like it, you're going to give them money, which is the optimistic side of things. There are very few games that I've found where that's the case anymore. League of Legends used to be that case, I think. When they started out, or at least like the first half, it felt as if you were supporting them when you bought a skin, and it's a really passionate thing. But now they're just spitting them out left, right, and center, right? And in the case of gacha games, they do give you free stuff, right? But the steps to get there don't really make them free. Usually, you're playing the game for a few hours, which isn't terrible. That's not a complete punishment, depending on the game and who you ask. But you're also paying in your user data. That's usually what this is for freemium games. It's your retention, your logins, all the stuff that you're doing to prove that this is a profitable venture for higher investors, and then you get spat back more content, right? And the free stuff you get is a sample of what you could get if you paid for stuff. I might be like slamming into this stuff, but I do play a few of these games, and I play it because I like them. Warframe's an exception, and Star Rail is just like, I'm at the edge with that one, but Currency War is really fun, so I'll put my hands up. I wouldn't say it's a necessary evil, but it's a necessary cut of the market, because the fact that this is viable means that there's a lot more reach. There's this like statistic being thrown around like all the time about how most gaming is on mobile these days, right? And most people assume it's just because people have mobile phones. Just because you have a mobile phone doesn't mean you're playing games, right? Or at least the games I'm talking about in this instance for freemium. But for the people who don't have access to some kind of computer, console, they've only got a mobile phone, these are the tiny pockets that people get into to have some kind of gaming experience that's quite refined. So it's not so much of an issue. You just have to be aware as a customer. So with Indie AA, it's going to be really awkward, but I will be lumping it into a pretty big price range. This being your 20-ish and under. I really don't mind this category, mainly because it's massive. And surprisingly enough, I feel a little bit better paying for the game rather than someone just telling me it's free, and then I have to work on the rails for it to be fun. Yeah, so yeah, I'll say that, I've bought quite a few games, 20 and under-ish, and I've had an amazing time with them. I've been gifted a few of them, and those have been great. Mainly because I'm either, like, getting the full experience in a short amount of time, or it's just a really refined game for its money. One of them I'm looking at right now, which is a good segue into the next part of this bracket, is Alabaster Dawn. Alabaster Dawn I'm interested in because I like Crosscode, but it's in early access at the moment. and I'm not 100% on buying it because the previous video, I bought an early access game and I didn't really like it that much, or like it enough. You know, early access, yeah. So early access is the next part of this I want to talk about, because early access tends to be within that like £20 range and under. Your currency, obviously. But there is a bit of a trapping to this. You are gambling on the developers to work on that game. If they don't, you've paid the same amount for a finished game. It is not done. And you woke up and you were like, yes, I want to buy this game, even though it's not done. Under the idea that they're going to finish it. I have my gripes to early access, and it feels terrible to spend money on something that isn't finished, right? But you also could be the sucker who buys a £60-70 game that isn't finished as well. I suppose the third part of Indie AA is I wanted to talk about Friendswap again, but from like a financial standpoint, where these games are super cheap for the most part. And generally speaking, some of these have some crazy value proposition. Like Lethal Company, despite being made by like functionally a handful of people. People say it's one guy, but you know, we said Undertale was one guy and we saw how that went, right? That's besides the point. This is kind of the opposite of early access, where if you have a really passionate team, you pay less than like £10 for a copy of this game, and they just keep updating it, right? And then you also just have like the free reins to mod your game, and these things are usually very moddable, so that's a good thing. Though my only gripe really is I would prefer to buy multiple copies of these games. That'd be great. I know they're probably like at a loss if they made some kind of thing like that, but the other reason it probably doesn't exist is because these games thrive off of like referral. So if I saw this stuff on like social media, where I was following this Friendswap game and I was like, yo, we gotta get this game, you know, all the fellas gotta hop on this, right? Instead of showing me the value proposition of saving like $2 if I bought the game twice over to share with a friend, they just get the full like revenue if I was able to convince however many people to go and buy this game and play it with me for X amount of time. And hopefully they come back and update it, and I'm just getting more out of my purchase. The big one. Fuck. The big one. Charitably at like £30, usually 60. Whatever stupid price it is these days. I don't care. In memory, I've only bought probably less than 10 AAA games in my time, and most of them have been Nintendo games, which have been fine at worst, I think. Good at best. Best is probably Breath of the Wild, but, you know, call me a fucking tourist for that one, I guess. Weirdly enough, for all the money I spent, a lot of these are okay. And most of what you're paying for as a customer is offsetting how much they paid to make this game. I think, before I divulge a little bit, one of the ones that I bought as a straight purchase was Stellar Blade. I bought it because I like Shift Up as a company. Shift Up has only done mobile games. They've only done gacha. So this is their first like AAA game. And it was like a PlayStation signed thing. It was okay. It was like the easiest 7 out of 10 of my life. I guess that's telling. You know, you pay all this money, and most of it is just to allow the developers to have a bunch of stacked voice actors, sign a bunch of people to be on the game, like their faces, their likeness, whatever, right? Cars, you know, whatever like legal thing they need to pay for. It's weird. It's genuinely crazy, because these games are pumped out faster than cheaper games, if you think about it. all of your like 20-ish pound games, if you think about it, have taken years and months, years and months. What am I saying? Used years and years to just refine wherever this is, right? Or they get lucky and it's a game jam and it took a turnover in a year or something like that, right? But they're like business pipelines for AAA games, and we are, as consumers, are paying way more, and they have been the most stagnant. Of course, there are many reasons to this. You know, there's like a mass appeal thing, right? So that you get everybody's £60 from that design choice, right? But this just doesn't click. Doesn't make any sense. And a lot of these games are frozen in price 90% of the time. Like, I would pay for just Call of Duty Zombies, but unfortunately, I have to pay full price for a game that would have been like £40 or something when it came out, when I was alive, and it came out, right? And somehow it's also a tenth of my hard drive just to play zombies. It's like, no, you can't have it. The real shame for me in the AAA is fighting games. I've always really wanted to get into them. I bet if I really committed to a fighting game and had people to practice with, I could have some fun with it, right? But it's just so expensive to get into. This entire video says nothing about DLC. Another can of worms, right, that I don't even want to get into, right? Fighting games have this problem where you are at an inherent competitive disadvantage for not having DLC, which is wild. What's worse is that these games are £60. They're not £60 now, but on release, which is categorically the best time to play a fighting game before the matchmaking has weeded out all of the new players and everyone has been able to practice, is on release. I don't get it. And even if it's half price, it's still in the £30 bracket, which is so expensive. You know, like if I wanted to buy, for example, I don't know, Street Fighter 6, right? And it would be pretty effective if I had a friend who owned the game, right? That is £120. 120 split between two people just to practice. And could you imagine paying for that game full price? Not getting into a single game because you're unranked, right? The one game you just get completely folded like laundry. What are you gonna do? It just feels awful, right? I know that's genre specific, but the problem originally starts with money. And I'm not saying we make every game £20. I'm just saying that a AAA price tag is inane. So what? I think what I'm trying to get at is trying to curb some kind of consumerism in gaming and have a little more buyer awareness. Of course, I neglected any kind of like platform discussion, but as we're seeing it doesn't really matter. It only really exists for smaller developers and larger companies trying to have some kind of arbitrary pull to their platforms. Games can be cheap as a hobby, as long as you know what you're getting into and you just pick what you like. I think it's very easy to just kind of like get complacent with these kind of things. And a lot of people are, which is why all the annual sports games and the biannual Call of Duty, or is it even annual anymore? God knows, right? But it's that kind of thing where it's like moderation is important and you don't really need to buy the new game. And expanding your horizons is important. I didn't even talk about like Game Pass in this video, I just realized now. But that one is just like you're given so much choice, or so little choice, that you still end up with nothing to play. However ironic that is. And moderation is funny, given I play like 2-3 main games where all of it is just fucking gambling. Also, I'm not gonna be stupid in this one, and this is like the first time, mark it down in Deza GD history, that I'll be like, if you agree, interact with my channel. leave a stupid comment or click that stupid arbitrary like button. Or God forbid, you torture yourself and click the subscribe button so that you can hear me incessantly ramble.